Thank you all for coming. I know that each one of you are here to learn more, and our goal is to help you learn more, help you have more information about this topic. Some housekeeping rules, please. Please silence your phones during this very important discussion. The restrooms are towards your left and to the back. Please maintain silence during this important discussion. We've got volunteers. Can I have a show of hands for volunteers who will have flashcards? They will be located in the room. So if you have any questions, and thank you for the volunteers, if you have any questions during the course of this talk, it would be helpful for you to get some flashcards. If you want to already have flashcards with you, that's even better. And have a piece of pen or pencil and write those questions on the flashcards. So that way that will not interrupt the speaker. And we want to have a robust questions, a robust discussion, and make sure that your questions are answered, all of your questions are answered. Now, I do have help from three folks here, Dr. Raghu Davalapur, Dr. Srinivas Kapumanu, and Priya Mehra. Raghu is a psychiatrist by profession, Srinivas is an internist by profession, and Priya is a parent. So they will field those questions in terms of the volunteers coming and handing those. They will screen those questions, and then they will hand over those questions in the form of badges so I can ask the panelists. So let's follow that process so that way we will have a robust discussion and make sure that your questions are answered in a timely fashion. For whatever reason, your question cannot wait and it cannot come through the process, please raise your hand. I will find time to make sure that you are given an opportunity to answer that question. We do have some extra mics, so we can certainly have one of the volunteers or myself take that mic to you, and you can certainly have your comment as well as a question. For this panelist, we do have Padmaja here in the front row who will at least give a 1-minute warning to the panelists, so at least we would know that their time is up, and then they would try to conclude their talk if possible. But again, with that said, my goal today is to be a moderator of this robust information sharing and discussion that we would have. To begin with, I would like to kind of show you some basic statistics of some of the things, and I thought it'd be helpful to have the audience have this information. So that's the reason why I put this together. And of course, before I show any information, there is a disclosure about this seminar. We have come together as a community to put this talk together primarily with the sole intention of providing information to the parents. And obviously there are specific organizations involved who have come together in this process to help, and that certainly we want to make sure that they're not held liable. So if you think about high blood pressure, everybody knows what high blood pressure, hypertension is. What is the prevalence? How many people in the United States have high blood pressure? And the answer is 30%. 30% of the people in the United States at some point have high blood pressure. About 1/3 of the population, 75 million plus people. What do you think about diabetes? What number of people in the United States have diabetes? About 9%. Still a big number. What about depression? What percentage of young adults, these are very productive ages, right, 18 to 25 years. In US, what percentage of them have depression? Or clinical depression, I would say. 11%. So when you look at the amount of focus diabetes, high blood pressure get, and the prevalence of diabetes and hypertension, you compare that to, the amount of stigma people have, as well as the amount of awareness people have about depression, it's staggering. Now, overall prevalence in the population is about 6.7%. So it's less than diabetes, but still pretty high. Now, for children, which is 12 to 17 years, do you think this number, 11%, for the children less than 18 years, do you think this number is higher than 11% or lower than 11%?
Higher.
It's more than 11%. So it's 20%. So one thing to be aware of is it's very, very prevalent, and it's important for us to know. Of these people, how many say, I don't think I have depression, I don't want to get any treatment? What percentage? In US again. And when you look at that number, 37%. Big number of people who ignore it, who say they don't have it, or they can't feel it, and so on and so forth. They feel it, but they don't get any help. Now, if you look at the developing countries, India being one of them, how many people don't seek treatment? Is it higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher. And it is 75%. So it's a very, very staggering numbers when you look at the treatment for these illnesses. How about anxiety? What is the prevalence of anxiety in adults? This is in adults. It's 18%. And then, of course, in younger kids, 12 to 17, it's 25%. More than depression. So how many people seek treatment? About 37%. So again, what we are here to talk about is a very, very prevalent illness, and what I have and the group of us have done is to put together a robust panel who are experts in various facets of this, and I am hoping that they're going to be able to answer some of your questions as well as provide information to you. Of course, before we go there, anybody can think of about how many people actually die around the world every year because of suicide? Million people. Every year. So it's a big problem. Okay? So again, I wanted to highlight the teenage depression before I call upon the panelists, and I wanted to show a video. Can somebody lower the lights in the back if possible? And then it's a 3-minute quick video. I wanted to show that.
Do you ever feel a little off, like you're not good enough, for anyone, especially yourself? No motivation to do anything, like you're worth nothing, like you are nothing. Do you ever feel that way? Does anyone ever feel that way? Try and put yourself in the shoes of someone who's depressed. You feel like you're falling into a black hole, and no matter how hard you try and fight it, you fall in deeper. You feel like you don't deserve to have a life because you're not doing anything productive with it. That you don't want to die, you want to live as a happy person, but you don't know how to. It's not that your life sucks, and if your life doesn't suck, it makes it harder to understand what is wrong with you. You feel guilty, like you should stop feeling sorry for yourself because you have nothing to be sad about. You may have friends, but when you're around them, you bury your feelings under a fake smile. Sometimes you feel like they're friends with the fake you and haven't even met the real you. Everyone says that there is so much freedom in being a teenager, but not everyone feels the same. Some feel confined in a world of chaos. Every morning you wake up and it's just another day, same as the one before it. Nothing is new or exciting. You feel like you're stuck in a loop that just keeps going and going, but not going anywhere. You never realize how small you are until you're compared to something greater. I'm not an optimist nor a pessimist. I'm realistic, and I hate to break it to you, but reality sucks sometimes. Any human is susceptible to depression. Rich or poor, young or old, loved or unloved, tall or short, thin or fat, polite or rude, quiet or noisy, black or white. 20% of teens will experience depression before adulthood. You never know who's part of that 20%. If you are depressed, you need to do something about it. There are many options such as therapy, talking to friends, exercising, and getting enough sleep. Though it may seem like there's no hope, there is. You just need to stay strong enough to get help. I know. It can be hard though, because no one really knows just how you feel. And if someone did, they can't get the guts to say anything. They're just trying to dodge a bullet. Are you okay?
So, okay, at this point, begin with, I would like to call Dr. Jyotsna Adma, who is a child psychiatrist by profession. Please hold your applause until everybody is seated, please. Who's a child psychiatrist by profession and representing the panel from the medical standpoint this issue. I would like to call upon Reena Sharma Watts, a psychologist by background, representing the panel on this issue from the psychological standpoint. I would like to call upon Dr. Stephen Arkin, a neurologist by profession, representing the panel from the perspective of a parent. I would like to call upon Karen Mulligan, who is the manager of the social workers for the Blue Valley School District, representing the panel from the perspective of what the school district is doing in order to address this issue in children. I'd like to call upon Gail Robertson, a psychologist at Children's Mercy, representing the panel from the perspective of what Children's Mercy is doing in addressing suicide in the community and working with the community physicians at large. Please welcome the panel with a big round of applause. So, to start us off, Dr. Jyotsna Adma is a child psychiatrist. She works at KBC Child Psychiatric Hospital. She graduated from University of Kansas Medical Center with a residency training and fellowship training in child psychiatry. She's board certified. She has about 11 years of experience working with children with various psychiatric problems. She works both in the outpatient setting as well as in the hospital setting. Please welcome and
Children fill our lives with wonder and joy. We as parents promise ourselves to do everything possible to keep them safe and guide them into adulthood. But in this journey, we come across certain challenging stages for them as well as us, parents, that can seem very puzzling and difficult to understand. For today's event, I know we are focusing on adolescents, and I'm going to talk about childhood depression because it's one of the common medical illnesses that teenagers face. Adolescents is a unique developmental stage. They go through a lot of physical, emotional, social, and psychological changes. These changes can be so dramatic that it leaves the parents wondering if what they are seeing is normal or if there is a cause for concern. Now, let's take a minute to understand some basic facts of brain development. Around 6 to 7 years of age, the brain reaches about 90 to 95% of the adult size. But a lot of remodeling needs to happen for it to function as an adult brain. This remodeling, this pruning, starts in the back of the brain. The frontal part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, that's the last part to be remodeled. This prefrontal cortex is essentially responsible for planning, controlling impulses, solving problems, and even thinking about the consequences. So as this prefrontal cortex is developing, these adolescents might rely on a part of the brain called amygdala to make these decisions or control their impulses. This amygdala is associated with emotions, impulses, aggression, and instinctive behaviors. So being aware of these basic facts of the brain can help us in understanding how some teenage behaviors that seem bizarre to us are actually normal. The hormonal changes in a teenager's body can cause them to be very moody, and we can see the ups and downs. Teens feel things very intensely and can have magnified emotional response. Typical teen behaviors include a focus on their own friends, being independent from their family, and trying to be their own person. Your teen will stop talking to you as often as they used to. They don't want to be seen with you out in the community. They have a different opinions from their parents. They rely mostly on their friends in these decision making than looking at their parents. Your teen might quarrel with you more. You might see more arguments, more defiance. They can accuse you that you do not love them and that they hate you. But these arguments in a typical teen behavior are not constant. They don't result in violence, and they don't result in long-standing resentment. It's normal for teenagers to try to want new experience, although for parents it can be very stressful. They need to explore their own limits and identities. It's all a part of their normal development as they're trying to establish their identity. In this process, they end up into risk-taking behaviors like alcohol, drugs, dangerous driving, skipping school, getting into arguments, things of that nature. Sometimes some of these kids engage in these behaviors just to keep up with peers or fit in the group. Not only adults become depressed, even children and adolescents may have depression as well. Adolescent depression is increasing at an alarming rate. Teens nowadays they see more of what life has to offer on TV, on internet, social media, school. They're being bombarded with so much of information. And then issues such as peer pressure, academic expectations, parent expectations, and changing bodies can bring a lot of ups and downs for the teens. About 20% of the teens experience depression. Hello? Can you hear me now? Okay. About 20% of all teens experience depression before they reach adulthood, which means for as many as 1 in 5 teens. That's a significant number. Depression can have serious consequences and calls for prompt, appropriate treatment. It sometimes can worsen to the point of becoming life-threatening. So basically it can be a fatal condition. What causes it? The exact cause of depression is poorly understood. It seems to have to do with a complex interaction between genes and environment. We do not have an accurate diagnostic tool to predict where or when it might show up. Genetics play an important role. People who have a family history of depression are at high risk of experiencing this diagnosis. Stressful life events in those who are genetically vulnerable can trigger these symptoms. Sometimes depression even does not have a trigger, which often leads to the person not understand why they're feeling so down. The line between normal teenage behaviors and illness is not always clear. Because depression is a mental illness and is invisible, it can be a lot harder to understand than, say, high cholesterol or something that's very obvious, say vomiting, rash. Clinical depression is a medical disorder defined by feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. A lot of people who experience depression are very familiar with comments from family and friends like, snap out of it, stop feeling sorry for yourself, get up and do something. And one more, you don't have anything to be feeling sad about. That's very common. Even those with depression might not even know what they're experiencing, and they often blame themselves for not snapping out of it. These symptoms can last for weeks to months to years. Symptoms can also be cyclical, which means they can come and go over a period of months to years. This causes a lot of distress and problems in various aspects of their life. As I mentioned, depression is a medical disorder that's defined by problems with thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and it can cause a lot of physical symptoms too. Teens can be feeling sad and crying easily, sometimes for no apparent reason. Being irritable or annoyed, rather than being sad, can be a predominant mood in depressed teens. They tend to get frustrated or angry easily over small matters. This can result in anger outbursts and frequent conflicts with parents and friends. Depression may also affect appetite, weight, sleep, energy levels, so it can go up or down. They might be sleeping too much or all the time, or they might have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep. Some of them might be eating all the time, and some kids complain or talk about not having any appetite at all. The energy levels can be so low that even day-to-day tasks and activities like showering can be very exhausting for them. Their ability to concentrate, think, remember, focus, that can also be impaired. So this causes a lot of problems in their schoolwork. So in addition to change in one's mood, a hallmark of depression is the inability to feel joy. Things that they used to enjoy and have fun and look forward to, they don't seem to have the same effect anymore. So lack of enjoyment leads to a decreased interest in pleasurable activities. They also start to withdraw and isolate themselves. They feel very, their self-esteem can be very low. They might start feeling very worthless. This can make them extremely vulnerable to criticism, rejection, and failure. And this is a big problem, particular problem for overachievers. Some of the teens might express the depression through hostile and aggressive outbursts or risk-taking behaviors. With more severe depression, teenagers might start having feelings of guilt and start believing that they're a burden to their family. It can be difficult to think of these feelings and thoughts and behaviors as a symptom. To many of us, because they're in the head, they might seem like decisions. For example, a kid who is depressed and is feeling tired, we might think that they're just lazy and are just sleeping all day long. Or kids who start isolating, they might seem like they're now having a bad attitude and therefore they're not spending time with them anymore. But remember, what is in our heads isn't an imaginary thing. Our thoughts, feelings, behaviors are influenced by a complex series of chemicals in the brain. Depression symptoms won't likely get better on their own. They may get worse or lead to other problems if untreated. They can result in substance abuse, poor school performance, legal problems, conflicts with family, friends. Depressed teenagers may be at risk for suicide, even if signs and symptoms don't appear to be severe. Suicide is a rare but devastating consequence of depression. For ACAP, it's the second leading cause of death for children, adolescents, and young adults. It may be associated with feelings of stress, self-doubt, pressure to succeed, disappointment, and loss. These teenagers might seem like a temporary condition seems like a permanent one, and suicide seems to be the only solution for their problem. Most of these teenagers have given some clear signs. They have overwhelming sense of guilt, shame, rejection. Some of them might have even made statements like, I wish I was dead, I won't be a problem to me anymore. They might stop planning or talking about future and start giving away important possessions. Take these warning signs very seriously. Silence is deadly. Ask about their feelings and thoughts. Most of the parents think that talking about suicide might actually insert these thoughts in their brain. In fact, research has shown that talking about suicide actually reduces their suicide risk. Ask them how they are feeling, if they are having thoughts of hurting or killing themselves, and if they've ever had any thoughts of hurting or killing themselves. When to seek help. I've gotten a warning here, so I will be rushing. Basically, one of the big difference between teen behavior and depressed is the durations, the intensity, and the frequency of the symptoms, and how it interferes their life. So significant decline in their school performance, repetitive use of alcohol or drugs, frequent outbursts of anger or aggression, threats to self-harm or others. These are signs that we are ready to go seek help. The first step is to obtain a good evaluation. So talk to your family doctor or a pediatrician to get the right evaluation, and then the next step is to find the right treatment plan. The treatment includes psychotherapy and medication. Rina will be following her to talk more about therapy. And you'll have other time to ask me more questions.
I know you have a few more slides, so hopefully you'll come up with additional information later on. But I do want to point out, I know in the audience you would have, teenagers, children which are less than teens, so you're talking about kids who are say 17 to 18 years, and kids who are less than 13 years, for example. Is there a difference that you see in terms of the depression, how it manifests in little kids versus, say, teenagers?
What I tend to notice is that little kids, the pre-adolescents, tend to be more somatic, so more physical complaints like tummy ache, headache, I don't want to go to school, I want to be with my mommy, don't leave me alone. So that seems to be more of a problem in pre-adolescents. Whereas teenagers, you tend to see more of an anger, hostile behavior, leave me alone, you not understand, more decline in their academic performance, substance abuse, things like that.
Okay. How about males versus females? Do you see, obviously, most of us have boys and girls as kids, so as parents, do you expect them to notice any difference in these symptoms if it is a boy versus a girl?
Before puberty, there is an equal ratio between males and females. But once they reach puberty, females have double the risk of struggling with depression than with males.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Give a round of applause. For those people who have questions, please write them down, give it to the volunteers so they can start bringing those to the folks here on to my left who can start getting those. Okay, volunteers, please help collect those flashcards so we can certainly answer those questions. At this time, I would like to call upon to the panel, call upon Dr. Rina Sharma Watts. She has a master's degree from Marquette University, Milwaukee. She's currently in private practice in Overland Park. She's a licensed counselor by profession. She has over 10 years of experience working in both outpatient as well as in the hospital setting, and she has experience both with individual therapy as well as in group therapy. Please welcome.
So I'm kind of nervous, so now I know, when people come for me for the first time, how nervous they are. So now I can relate to them. So I'm going to talk about more what factors play into depression and how we can help our kids. Because I feel like if we as a parent know things about depression, we will be able to help our kids. And when our kids come to us, then we can say, okay, it's normal. Because more you normalize things, more they will be okay about things. If we are already in stigma about depression, our kids are not coming to us talking about it because our belief matters to them. Because they look up on us as parents. So those are the things I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about bullying because these days bullying is the main factor. Because whatever happens at school, sometimes we don't even know because we didn't go to school here. So we don't know what happens at school. We always see our kids at home. And if they are irritated, they are not listening, we think that's behavior issue. That might be something else going on in school. So all those things, I think if we are okay about it and if we know about things, then we can at least listen to them. Listening is the one thing I would emphasize that because if we are not listening to our kids, we are letting them know that they don't matter. So that means they don't know where to go after that. Because if parents are giving that kind of impression that they don't matter, where will they go? Right? So those are the things I'm going to talk about. So what kind of things, what kind of factors lead to depression? So sometimes, these are the, I am not talking about everything, I'm going to talk about certain things because you guys can read, I know everybody can read, right? So I don't want to go through each and every word of it, but I'm going to talk about main concept of it. So people who have other mental disorders like learning disability, attention deficit, those things are also put more pressure into depression. And also people who have obesity, self-esteem issues, body image issues, those kind of things also play a big role in depression. So today my main focus will be bullying, how bullying will affect depression. Because if somebody is already depressed and they are bullied at school, what kind of things we can do as parents to let them know that it's not normal, we are with them. So when your kid is coming to you, please don't panic. Because the first impression, whatever we give our kids, it always impacts them deeply. Because if my kid is coming to me and I'm saying, okay, shrug it off, don't do it. And then what I'm telling them, avoidance. That, if you avoid things, they will go away. How many of you believe in that? Avoiding is letting go of things. Do you think avoidance can let go of things?
No.
Right? But mainly in our life, that's what we do. We always believe that if we don't talk about things, with time, they will go. So certain personality traits such as low self-esteem, dependence, self-critical pessimism, these all play a big factor in depression. So our main goal as a parent is boosting our kids' self-esteem. So how can we do those kind of things? What are your ideas as a parent? What can we do to build our kids' self-esteem? Any ideas?
Praise.
I'm sorry?
Praise them.
Encourage them, support them.
Yes.
Give them the small wins.
Yes. So having a smaller goal, realistic goal for our kids, right? Because more they achieve whatever they set up as a goal, more they will have that self-esteem, more confidence they will gain. Because as a parent, I know we are from different culture, we came from India, what our belief was as education, what we want our kids to be. So we never think about what our kids would like to be. We always pressure what we want our kids to be. So I think if we are aware of those things, what we are doing to our kids, that will help us to see things differently. Okay, I'm getting good. warning signs. Okay, so what is depression? What is bullying? So I think cyberbullying these days is the main factor. Why it's very, very, very dangerous, cyberbullying? Because I feel like it's a secret. Nobody can know who is doing it. Because everybody's making fake IDs. They are torturing other kids. And kids, when they're teens, their friends are their family. And if they don't know who is bullying them, you can imagine going out, not knowing who's their friend, who's not. It's very overwhelming for them. So there are 6 types of bullying. I'm just going to go through physical, verbal, emotional. So you guys can read through it because I'm getting warnings. Sexual bullying, prejudice bullying, and cyberbullying. Sometimes bullying happen if the kid is gifted kid because they are doing well in school. Some kids don't like other kids to do well in school. So what they do, they start picking on them. So even though our kids are doing well in school, but socially if they are not as active that they can face those kind of things, it can affect them. Or sometimes, if you're doing good in any kind of sports, kids try to pull your leg or they do things. So all those things matter, and how we build our kids' self-esteem also matters, because if they are more vocal, they are more confident, they can face those things. So I feel like as a parent, we need to teach them resilience, how to be resilient. So these are the facts of bullying. They feel overwhelmed. And if you see the depression, effects of depression, symptoms of depression and symptoms of bullying, they overlap. They feel isolated, they don't want to go to school, their academic performance is low, their eating and sleeping patterns are less, they are isolating themselves, they are not playing with their friends. Sometimes they get into drugs, so they have new kind of friends. So we need to figure those things out too. If they are changing their friends, if they are eating and their sleeping patterns are bad or changing, we need to be aware of those things. We need to ask or have more open communication with our kids that this is what I am seeing. It has nothing to do with you, but this is how I'm feeling. Is there anything we need to discuss? So that they don't feel pressured and they feel like, okay, everybody's paying attention and they have support so they can come to us. So how, as a parent, we can help our kids? Encourage communication, right? And for bullying, if your kid is coming to you, I think the first step is validating their feelings. Because if we don't let them know that, okay, this is okay, nobody will tell them. And kids will go. I feel like kids are the one, parents are the first step they come to, right? If their first step is not the right step, then what are we doing as a parent? We are pushing them away. And then they feel lonely. And when they feel lonely, and then all those things come, right? They start feeling probably there's hope, there's no hope, they're powerless. The only thing is if they commit suicide or they harm themselves. So those kinds of things we need to be aware as a parent, that when they're coming to us, no matter what situation we are in, no matter what kind of stress we are in, but we have to give 100% to our kids. So with the self-esteem part, and I feel like, if we encourage our kids to be having volunteer work, active in sports, active in other activities, so that, they don't have empty mind. I feel like empty mind is devil's workshop. More your kids are staying at home, not doing anything, that's what all these things create. The thinking, like Padma said, thinking, behavior, and emotions, they go along. If you have a bad thinking, that will create bad emotion, and that will create bad behavior. So we cannot change behavior, we cannot change emotions, but through our behavior and emotions, through our behavior and thinking, we can change our emotions. So I think if we teach our kids the resilience, how to act and focus on the facts rather than not focusing on what they are thinking, because our thinking might be just thinking. It's not the fact, it's not the reality. If I feel powerful, I can do things, right? That's why whenever we go somewhere, if I tell myself I can do it, it gives me energy, it gives me more power to do things. But if I say, oh, I cannot do it to myself, what can we do? nobody can help us, because if we are thinking powerless, nobody can help us. So the treatment for depression and bullying is the same thing, because bullying is affecting the depression. So the medication, psychotherapy. In psychotherapy, there is a cognitive behavioral therapy where they teach how thinking, emotions, and behavior correlate and how we can change them. And since in depression, kids have more negative thinking. No matter what they see, they have more negative thinking. So as a parent, it's our duty to show them that they also have positive things, It's not just whole of them, it's part of them. So when we start differentiating part to whole, I think our kids can understand more. That if I'm depressed, it's not whole of me, it's just part of me, but I'm good at these things. So we have to be focused on positive rather than negative. Our attitude toward depression, our attitude towards our kids will affect them. If we are more open about things, I think our kids will be more open about things. Sometimes I feel like our nonverbals play a big role how our kids take things from us. So even though I'm saying it's okay, I can take things, in open mind, but our body language is different, our kids are more sensible to our body language. So they know what we are telling them is not compatible with what we are feeling. So I think we need to be open physically and emotionally and with nonverbals too. So every time you're talking to your kids, please just see your nonverbals, because that plays a big part when you're talking to your kids. So there's one dialectic behavioral therapy. It's a therapy where we talk about how to control intense emotions, because sometimes if we are feeling with emotional mind, so in dialectic behavioral therapy, we say that most of the time we think with our emotional mind, rational mind, and there is a wise mind, where it's a combination of emotional and rational. Because if we are thinking with emotional mind, we are not paying attention to the reality. We are paying attention to the emotions, and that's how we are thinking, based on our emotions. And with rational minds, we are just focusing on the facts, we are not focusing on our emotions. So it's not a balance. The main balance is when we start thinking with the wise mind, where our rationality and emotions play together. So these are the resources in Kansas City. So if you guys have any issues with anything with your kid, please go to Psychology Today. They have a list of all the therapists, most of the therapists in Kansas City. You can go read their profile and see what is best fit for your needs. Because not every kid has the same kind of need. As a parent, I think probably my child doesn't need those kind of things. So I feel like if I involve my kid in that process to finding a therapist or to finding a psychologist, I think that's the best way to go, because then they know, okay, I've been heard and my parents are paying more attention to my needs, not their needs. And also, when they are getting bullied at school, they are coming to you, please don't jump to conclusions. Because as a parent, what we say, let's go talk to your principal. Do you think that's the right way to do things? Because we need to bring them close to us by saying, what do you think I can do with this? How I can support you? Because the way they're in school, we don't know what's happening at school. We need to ask them what they want us to be, how they want us to be supported. Right? Because if we are listening to our kids, that means they matter. If I'm saying, oh no, let's go to the principal and then we fix it, we cannot fix anything. We can only support it because it's a big, system. But we care about our kids. If we let our kids know that I will do anything, what you want me to do, then they think, okay, they can come to us and they feel secure and safe. And also, cyberbullying, kids don't show up their emotions because first thing as a parent, what we're going to do? We'll say, okay, shut down your computer. Shut down your phones. But that's their life. So what they do? They don't come. Because if I tell my parents I'm getting cyberbullied, they take away my phone. That's their social life. Who would like to give up their social life? Right? So those kind of things I think we need to keep in mind when our kids are coming to us and talking. And also when they are bullied at school, we always get clues. You know, if you are talking to your kid, you might get random sentences through them. So how actively we are listening, that's what matters. All right, thank you. So these are the things, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you. Much for your expertise in that. A follow-up question. You know, you talk about bullying. You did mention a lot about the peer bullying at school, right? And a lot of peer pressure, right? And I tell you, among the South Indian community, I tell you, people not only talk about peer pressure as well as, you know, things happening at school, but also what I heard is pressure from parent pressure. So there's a lot of talk, discussion among South Asian community about not just peer pressure, parent pressure. We want our kid to do this. We want our kid to be the best in this and that and this. Can you comment on not just peer pressure, but parent pressure?
Because, you know, that kind of statement, I think then parents are thinking about them. They are not thinking about their kids. Right? We are here for our kids, not for us. So I feel like if there is a comparison, why we do comparison? Because we get into that power struggle. If my child is doing best, I'm the best parent. Do you think that's the reality though? If we don't live in reality, then how can we teach our kids to live in reality? So I feel like even though you're listening so many things, but if we focus on our kids' potential, if we focus on how our kids are better if they're not better in education, they're better in sports, that's okay. But we have to realize ourselves that, not up to our kids, right? If we are okay with that, I think our kids will be okay. So that's why I feel like to bring that safe environment at home, we need to accept our kids the way they are. We can support them, we can guide them, but also we need to see where they can go, right? Rather than where we wanted them to go.
Great, thank you. At this point of time, I would like to invite Dr. Stephen Arkin. Dr. Arkin has completed his training at Northwestern University and the University of Iowa. He's a staff neurologist at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City. He is married to Dr. Karen Arkin, who's also a neurologist. They've lived in Kansas City for over 25 years. He is the father to Jason and Jennifer. Jason, I will let Dr. Arkin share the story. Jason has died by suicide in 2015 while a junior engineering student at Northwestern University. In an effort to honor his memory, he co-founded an organization called Speak Up. I think you would see a booth outside of that. This is a suicide prevention, education, and awareness for children, Kids United as partner, to encourage mental wellness and resilience in middle and high schools throughout Kansas City metro area as well as regionally. Welcome, Dr. Arkin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atma. Just an incredible showing up of the community. Shout out to the people in the hallway. Thank you for standing up and helping us begin this conversation to talk about mental illness in an effort to decrease the stigma of it and to reduce the chances of suicide. One of the things that go along with depression, actually a symptom of it. Just to give you guys a background, I'm from Chicago. My wife is from Texas, so naturally we met in California. And so we met at one of these neurology meetings, and epilepsy meetings, seizures. So, and we liked each other. So we decided to move to Kansas City, of course. And mainly because it was only a 5-hour drive from Iowa City, where I was doing and completing my residency at the University of Iowa. And we began our family, as Dr. Atma has mentioned, Jason first, then Jennifer, about 19 months apart. And what I will tell you is that Jason, right from the beginning, was, we knew right away, a special kid. I mean, he was good at everything. But because he was good at everything, he also developed this perfectionism. I mean, he would bang his head if he would not succeed at winning a game. And we knew from the beginning that the things were a little bit different, but he was a highly functioning person. National Merit finalist, Eagle Scout, or the debate team, winning award at the Optimist Club. But at the age of 12, he came to us after going to a program that was led by somebody who had lost their child to suicide. And he brought my wife aside and said, you know what? They were talking about me. And that's when we knew that he suffered. As Dr. Alba mentioned, one of the 20-25% of kids that do have these mental illnesses and that need to be watched over time. And for 9 years, we struggled and provided an effort to have him live with his illness. And as I said, National Merit finalist, going to Northwestern University, engineering, eventually dying just 5 days shy of his 21st birthday. So what we decided to do was not to make him just another statistic. One of these people, these 1 million people per year, 44,000 people in the United States per year, 1 every 13 minutes that die by suicide, but to try to figure out how to give back, to give his voice back to the community. And that's why we developed this Speak Up, this nonprofit organization, to bring back to the schools the ability for children affected and not affected to talk to each other as if they would talk about other illnesses, just as you would see they have a broken leg, but to talk about it in the same way. Supportive, build up resiliency. So we brought this about just a few months after he died, just less than 3 years ago, to help kids talk about their struggles, to provide education for prevention, and to eliminate the stigma and to reduce suicide. Our goal, of course, 0 suicide. Awareness, education, prevention training, evidence-based material that we are going to bring throughout the community. We've already spoken to and brought into schools, districts, Blue Springs, Blue Valley, Shawnee Mission, Liberty. And if anyone wants to talk to us, we have a table out there and people from our program available to speak to you about that. Not only do we go to the schools, but we also go to the community, to religious groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, companies, to bring the community together. All ages have to participate in these types of programs. Our program, UVU, what that is that everybody has an identity. You don't have to be the best. You have to strive and progress to be your best. That is our overriding message, to build up the resiliency to overcome the struggles and the fears, the anxiety that comes along with being a kid, to be able to progress through from middle school to high school, from high school to college, to the community at large, and to be productive. Our son, Jason, was a highly functioning person with depression, anxiety, and perfectionism. There was a problem within the brain. The brain cells talk to each other in a way that is cohesive with being able to produce and be part of society. But in people who are affected by mental illnesses, there's a disconnect. I am the outsider. I'm a neurologist, but I will tell you that neurology and psychiatry are very closely aligned in the way that brain cells talk to each other. The people with mental illnesses have difficulty in understanding the way that you are supposed to react to a certain situation. Dr. Adma clearly pointed out 37% of people seek treatment. Treatment does work. But the key is to break down the stigma to allow people to understand that they can be helped by treatment and they can function. The average person with mental illness life expectancy is 25 years less than the general population. We have to change these statistics. I appreciate the ability to be on this panel, to be with these esteemed folks who know about these illnesses. I unfortunately come to you as a parent affected. For every suicide in the United States, there's 6 people that are directly affected. So if you can imagine, 1 million in the world, 6 million of us, we are suicide survivors. We are a group, we don't want to be part of that group. We don't want you to be part of that group. That's why we have developed the program that we have. Again, appreciate the ability to talk to y'all.
Thank you, Dr. Arkin. It takes a lot of courage for a parent who is affected by such tragic loss to come up in front of so many folks and say, you know what, I didn't get to even trained in the medical specialty. I was not able to catch those warning signs. I wish I could do some of that. So I know you have probably gone through a lot of that thought process in your mind, and you and your wife and all, right? And for the benefit of folks, how many physicians in this group, in the audience? Raise your hand if you're a physician. For those thank you. And non-physicians too. So for as a parent, what kind of things you, as somebody who is affected by this, can you say to them to say, watch out for at least A, B, C, D, which I did not, please?
So in the last couple of years, what I have done is to educate myself even more about what we need to look for. And there are really 4 characteristics of suicidality that are very important. One that we've already talked about is burden. So when people talk, like your kids talk about being a burden, that's a very important clue that something's happening. If they become isolated, and our son was known at Northwestern as being the lounge person eventually, and to be able to talk to your kids about that and try to build up that community, that resource, that crisis line, so that if they do fall into that category, that they have a way out. Hopelessness, helplessness, and changes of behavior. That's the major thing. They're sleeping more, they're sleeping less. They're eating more, they're eating less. They're talking about giving away their possessions. They're talking about, one of our son said, am I an organ donor? I mean, if they start to talk about things that are concerning to you, those are the big warning signs, and those are things that we need to look at.
Great, thank you. I know there are people in the back standing, so in the interest of that, may I ask the audience to move your chairs, each one of the rows, move your chair forward so people in the back, they don't have to be outside. I am hospital that leads a team of 19 Children's Mercy social workers providing mental health support services within the Blue Valley School District system. So Blue Valley, as you know, has a contract with Children's Mercy, and then through that system, they provide all of the services through Blue Valley School District. So Ken will help us understand more about that, what they're doing within the Blue Valley School District. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity to be here, and so impressed by the turnout and by the interest from this community in this issue. I'm here representing Blue Valley, and in our district we have a philosophy of serving the whole child, clearly addressing the issue of suicide prevention and student wellness is a huge part of this. And I wanted to just share with you briefly an overview of some of the services that we provide in Blue Valley to address this issue and to support your children. And I also want to mention as a parent how much I realize my children spend a lot of time in school. And in the district, we just take really seriously your trust and look forward and welcome feedback and opportunities to work with parents as we are all trying to address this issue together. Kansas is one of 19 states in the country that passed the Jation Flat Act, and this is legislation which mandates that each building in a school district provides suicide prevention education for teachers on an annual basis. In addition, each building is required to have a crisis plan that includes recognition, a plan for when we recognize suicidal ideation in a student, that we have appropriate interventions in place, and a plan in the event that a crisis should occur. Within each building, we have a team of mental health professionals who work together with every member of our staff to address and support your children. The mental health team consists of your psychologists, counselors, as well as Children's Mercy social workers. And we all work together to implement a lot of different services and programs. We have a tiered system developed, and on level 1, we provide universal education and prevention to all students. This looks different at different levels, but we utilize research-based, proven effective programs to address this issue so that every student has the opportunity to hear and begin to educate themselves. We want to increase awareness. On level 2, those students who are identified as being at risk, we offer individual and small group responsive services. Everyone has access, but we certainly target and try really hard to pinpoint children who we notice are showing some warning signs. And then at level 3, anytime that a staff member has a reason to be concerned for suicide, we have a team of professionals who provide a suicide risk assessment. This is a standardized protocol in the district where we ask questions and interview the students and determine the level of risk. And then we also communicate and reach out to parents to discuss what has taken place and to make appropriate referrals and to support parents in accessing resources in the community. In addition, should a crisis occur, we have what's known as a flight team, which is a team of specially trained staff who can respond in a crisis situation appropriately. I also just wanted to share with you a resource that's available on the Blue Valley website. This was developed by Dr. Mark Schmidt, who is the Assistant Superintendent for Student Wellbeing. And on the district website, should you find that you're having questions and concerns, you can go to our student wellness page, and it will offer you some really useful links, reminders in how to know when to be concerned and when to seek help, and connections to community resources. And also, we just wanted to share a few of the resources that we, as our team of social workers, give out regularly to help support parents in addressing this issue with our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So Karen, as you can see, a large majority of the attendees today are from South Asian descent, primarily Indian descent, and there might be some folks from Pakistan and all. One of the things on the parents' mind when it comes to school in America, discrimination based on the color of the skin, where they are from. What is the school district doing to help on that front?
You know,
I think, again, we hope that we're addressing that issue. But certainly what's very important is creating a culture of acceptance, a culture of equality, at every level. We offer opportunities and some curriculums that are implemented from kindergarten to 12th grade to try to address this. And I also think it's a process of helping everyone to recognize and support individual students, individual opportunities, recognizing individual differences and how we can all learn from each other and offer respect for different ways of looking at things. That characteristics and that philosophy, I think, is shared throughout our district, and I hope that we're doing a good job of that.
So do they reach out to the principal, or do they reach out to the teacher? Do they reach out to the kid? What would you recommend?
Certainly that if that's a concern for you, I recommend talking to the building administrator. If you don't feel comfortable starting at that level, each building has access to a Children's Mercy social worker. And certainly as social workers, we want very much to respect cultures and differences, and we value equality and equal playing fields. So please feel free also to contact your school, ask to speak to the social worker, and they'll connect you, and you can begin the conversation to make sure that changes and issues are being addressed.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions, and I would like the panelists to address this before I call on the next speaker, and it's up to any one of you. One question is surrounding the fact that what if my kid is not ready to talk? And when I ask them the question, and they say, I don't want to talk, Mom. I don't want to talk, Dad. And so you as a parent, you're doing the right thing, which is, let's talk, let's sit down. But they are not ready. So help the parents understand, what do you do? Any one of them on the panels. And there are multiple mics, so please.
In my opinion, I feel like, even though they are not ready to talk, if you come forward and say, it's my concern, I'm not talking about you, but I'm seeing these kind of things, and whenever you're ready, I'm ready to talk. So giving them that kind of open door kind of thing, that I am here, and whenever you feel like talking, I am here, but I'm concerned about these things. So I feel like if you are not putting pressure on them, if you're talking about you, that this is my concern, you might not be feeling that, but this is what I am feeling. So I feel like those kind of things will help them to see that my parents or my loved ones are seeing things which probably I'm not paying attention to. So indirectly, I think you're giving them those kind of clues that I'm seeing those things. Are you seeing those things? Even though they're not talking, but they are listening. So I think that matters, because if they're listening, it's like, how we talk about alcohol, say no to alcohol, say no to cigarettes, those kind of things. We think they're not listening, but they do listen to us. So I feel like even though they are not ready, but if you are seeing things, just be open to your kids about that, because I feel like even though not a door you're opening, just a little window, that will help them.
Something to add to it. As many of you pointed out, parents are usually the first people to recognize that there is a problem. So just gently try to talk to them, and opening up the discussion about tough topics. Tells them that, my family cares. And at some point, whenever they're ready, they will come out and talk to them once you start that discussion. So just because they're shutting down or saying no way, don't stop.
This might be the next one. Okay, Gail.
The other thing, oops.
Okay, fair. So the other thing that I think was important with Jason is that to use all of your resources. Sometimes other people around them will be able to give you either verbal or nonverbal information, like their teachers, their friends, and you can tell about their interaction with their friends if something's going on. And perhaps, and there's studies that actually show this, is that there are people for certain types of problems are more likely to talk to their friends first before they talk to their parents. And if you happen to have one of those kids that know somebody who is affected, listen to them And remember, this is a community, and talk to each other, see what's going on. You know, and I'm just saying it's so important because this is nothing, you can't miss this. It's so important. Thanks.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say, is that look to each other. You're all here today, which means you all have new information and you're destigmatizing, you're making it normal. So look to each other. Look to each other as a parent to go, my kid won't talk to me. What do I do? And you'll reach over and the parent will go, yeah, they won't talk to me either. But there are so many resources. You have pediatricians, you have your own family physician, you have the social workers, you have schools, you have other parents. And as a parent, you don't have to sit in that secret of my kid has told me that they don't want to talk about something really important. So you can definitely reach out and get information about how to talk to them. And keep bringing it up. Don't stop bringing it up.
Right. This is the next question is maybe for the physicians on the panel, which is, a parent asks, is this a myth or reality? Which is the antidepressant medications. They talk about the side effect being them making you more suicidal, especially in children and young adults. So is this a myth or is there some truth to it?
Unfortunately, the antidepressants that we do use for the treatment of depression there is a risk of increasing suicidal thinking and behaviors in some of these kids. But in general, the benefits outweigh the risks associated with these medications. So, depression per se has a high risk of suicide. So it's very important that they do get started on medications when the symptoms are severe and are interfering with their day-to-day functioning.
Right. Thank you. If you, just to piggyback on that, the study that got them the black box warning on the antidepressants essentially increased the risk compared to a sugar pill. And it doubled the risk compared to 2% to 4%. So that got the FDA, to put a slap on the black box warning.
Something to add to that, the FDA black box warning was given in 2004. So once that black box warning came out, there was a tremendous decrease in the use of antidepressants. Now they started studying and they've noticed that there's been a significant increase in suicide since that warning has come out. So that tells us all something about the medications.
Very important point. Thank you. At this time, I would like to call upon the next speaker on the panel, Dr. Gail Robertson. Dr. Robertson is a clinical pediatric psychologist at Children's Mercy Hospital, specializing in chronic pain and disease. She has experience assessing and treatment, assessment and treatment of depression, anxiety, and severe mental illness in teens and preteens. And she has history of working in both hospital as well as in crisis management. Welcome, Dr. Robertson.
355 people-ish. So could you all stand up if you can, if you're able, stand up. Just take a minute and stand up. Now, if you came with a partner, a parent, and you are a co-parent with another parent, sit down and only one parent stay standing. Okay. Now, all but the first 4 rows, sit down. First 4 rows, stay seated, stay standing. Everybody else, sit down. Everybody else in the back, sit down. All right, now, take a look at this front group. If I made you all teens, you have all experienced depression. Look around. That's a lot of kids, you guys. All right, now everybody sit down. All those parents, okay, they had a chance of their kid committing suicide, and specifically dying by suicide, okay? It's death, guys, and that's scary, all right? So, I am a pediatric psychologist, and these are great panel people, so I don't have to review what they've gone over. But at Children's Mercy, we are doing a lot of effort around how to prevent this death, to prevent this disease that causes so many kids to choose a choice that is permanent. Okay? And so at Children's Mercy, we've made a lot of efforts around how do we get the first run people, and who's the very first person that comes in contact with your children? It's you guys, right? Parents. Who's the second person? Probably the schools, right? We've got that. Who's the third? What? Ooh, teachers, friends, and?
Physicians.
Physicians, right? Not just your run-of-the-mill physicians, every physician that your child comes into contact with, right? And so this is a great panel for getting in touch with the parents, and we have the teachers on board, and what Children's Mercy is trying to do is get every physician on board. Because just like you as parents are like, oh my gosh, it's terrifying to ask my kid if they have experienced suicidal thoughts. It's just as terrifying for a physician to ask, because then they have to do something about it, and that's scary, right? Like, now what? Now what do I do as a pediatrician? And so that next step is what we've been working on, that we have kind of these two main areas, okay? See something, say something. Pretty basic, right? You see a change, you see a difference, something is not quite right, then ask and say something. Say, I'm noticing that this has changed for you. What do you think's going on? And give that opening, right? First thing, that's something you as parents can do. You see something, you say something. And it doesn't have to be critical. It doesn't have to be, I've noticed that you're eating a lot of food lately. Not quite the same, right? But you could say, I've noticed that your appetite has changed lately, that you're more hungry than usual. Is something going on? Right? Pretty basic, right? Same with pediatricians. The second part is to always ask, okay? And three main questions. Have you thought about death? Pretty easy, right? That is a very common thought. It is common in 85% of teens. They have just the thought of death. Mortality is scary to humans. So we think about that, right? Second question, have you considered how you might die, right? Have you thought about how you might die? And third question, have you ever made a plan to? Have you ever wanted to so badly that you thought of a way to do it? Those three questions prevent the majority of suicidal action, right? Because once we have those answers, we get them help, right? And that might be talking to your pediatrician about medication, that might be getting them into psychotherapy. There's lots of options. So those three questions. The other thing we know, and I appreciate, I'm going to bring it back to the very beginning, when we ask, it does not increase suicidal thoughts, okay? What you've done is opened a door for a child who didn't think they could talk about it to now talk about it, right? And that's the very first step to preventing it. So at Children's Mercy, everybody, we are in the process of universal screening. And we just started in 2014. I know, I'm sorry, we're behind, all right? But in 2014, we started it. And now we are creating a program where every physician that comes into contact with a child asks those three questions, okay? Every physician. So what I'm asking of parents out there is that the very first thing you know is that that's going to be asked of your child, right? And so don't be surprised when a physician or a social worker or even a nurse asks you to leave the room for a minute, right? Because what do we know about teens? What are they really good at not doing? They're not good at sharing in front of you. They're like, absolutely not. I don't want to share in front of my mom, not my dad, right? But if you step out of the room, they might be more likely to share, okay? It's not because we don't want you to know. If your teen says yes to any of those questions, it is our obligation as physicians to talk to you. So don't worry, you're not going to be in the dark, okay? So that's the first part. The second part is that as parents, we have the option to ask them on a regular basis, how are you doing, right? The scary part is what if they say I'm not doing well, right? You now have an option, right? Children's Mercy also has the ability right now, we have 3 different groups, okay? We have our general line, 234 3000. That's just Children's Mercy across the board. You can also go to childrensmercy.org and find that same information. If you call that line, no matter what time you call the middle of the night because you're like, I don't know what to do, my kid told me this, blank. Fill it in, right? If you call, somebody will be on the line and will walk you through what to do next. So you don't always have to know. You might go, I don't know how to get a hold of a pediatrician for this particular concern. I don't know how to get a hold of a psychologist or a therapist or a family therapist. And somebody on the phone will always walk you through, okay? Second, we have the ER. Now that sounds scary, I know. But let's say that you have walked in on your child and they have said to you, I'd rather be dead tonight. I'd rather be dead tonight. And you don't know if you can keep them alive. That's scary. That's terrifying. Don't sit at home. Drive your child to the ER and get them assessed really fast. The great thing about that is, in that scary moment, you've just saved your child's life, right? Nobody would ever do anything different. And they're gonna be embarrassed, and then they're gonna get better, okay? And the third thing, the very last thing, is that if you don't hear those questions being asked of your child, you go to your pediatrician and they don't ask after 12 years old, have you had these thoughts? Then you as a parent can definitely ask the pediatrician, what are you doing to screen for depression and anxiety in my kids? Right? You can put that on them. You are an advocate for your kid. And you saying, I know that this is common in 25% of kids, either depression or anxiety, that is knowledge. And that is huge. Okay? Those are the first things. Those are the most important things in my mind. From a Children's Mercy standpoint, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as far as what we have available at Children's Mercy. We have a whole host of psychologists, but we only have 52. That sounds like a lot, but for the whole group of Kansas City and the surrounding area, that's not enough, and we know that. So what we also have been doing is developing a community outreach program that actually connects our Children's Mercy psychologists to psychologists and therapists in the community, and connects us with pediatricians in the community. We have a program called the Behavioral Health Master Class. Okay, this is a program for all pediatricians in the Kansas City and surrounding area to come get training on how to do these kind of questions, how to work through behavioral health and mental health concerns, and how to do it appropriately. And so if you're a pediatrician, you ask them, have you done the behavioral master class? And they go, no. You go, well, here's this number, 234-3000, right? Now you guys have information. If you have any questions, please just ask me.
Thank you, Gabe. So here's a suggestion from a parent, which I think is very important. We wanted to have the panel think through this. The parent says, okay, what do you think about the parents or the adults sharing information with the respective parent of another child where their child's friend is showing the warning signs? So this parent's kid is not having any warning signs. The kid's friend is having warning signs, and then this parent comes to know. So what should this parent do in that situation where they know their kid's friend is going through this struggle and are now having warning signs? So I'd like for you guys to chime in.
I mean, I can talk on my behalf. If I were that parent who will find out that my daughter's friend is in this kind of situation, I will talk to the parent. Not saying, oh, your daughter is struggling with this, to say that, this is I'm seeing. It might not be true, but it will be helpful to see if you are seeing the same thing. Because that way you are not putting pressure on the parents. You are showing that we are all parents, we all have situations. It's okay to have these situations, right? So if I am not telling the parent, then who will, right? If I can start opening these kind of discussions, if somebody comes to me, I will be thankful. Because sometimes as a parent, I'm not paying attention to those things. But if somebody is coming to me as a parent and saying me those things, I will be very thankful to that parent because they are saving my child's life. So I feel like, rather than jumping to conclusion, assuming, just go with the pure heart and say, this is what I'm seeing. I'm not saying that this might be true, but this is I'm seeing. So I feel like that way you're opening the door.
Anybody else?
Again, as a parent who has heard and has taught our daughter how to do this as well, is that we are all community. We have to watch out for each other. There's so many issues in terms of time management that we all have, that we can't capture every moment that we have with our child. So to have other folks looking out for them, the teachers, the religious people in our lives, anybody that can give us that type of information, and to have these types of programs where there's so many of you around that are hearing this message, don't be embarrassed. Don't carry the stigma. You know, your child's survival is based on this type of communication. Speak up. Be aware of what's going on, and you'll save somebody.
Quite often, we don't say anything because we're embarrassed, or we don't want to have another parent feel embarrassed, because mental health is so stigmatized in our culture here in the United States and across the world. It is something that mental health is kept inside your mind, right? We don't talk about it, we don't act on it, and we definitely don't share it, right? It's shameful, right? And that shame is actually one of the big risk factors for depression and suicide thoughts, right? And so as a parent, and you see another kid, you should say something. But keep in mind all of that emotion that comes with it, and approach it with more of I'm seeing this and I'm worried, right? And I want to help. Can I help? Even if that other parent reacts with, oh my gosh, not my child, why would you even bring that up, in embarrassment, and doesn't want to talk to you, you've now planted a very small seed, and now they're watching, right? Now they might catch something that they weren't going to see otherwise.
Thank you. As I frame the next question, I would like to ask Nanda Vaidya to come on here for a few minutes. And the question is, as parents, we always think that maybe the nutrition or the diet that I'm giving my child has something to do with it. Maybe, is depression and diet related in some way, form, or the other. Nanda, by profession, she is a nutritionist, so she certainly understands the relationship with some of the nutrients and food that we give our kids. And I thought maybe hearing your perspective of from Nanda about what diet might have any role, if any. Nanda, please. Sure.
Hello. What I would like to definitely encourage is just planning and eating a balanced, healthy diet, and do not try any fad diets or binge dieting, energy drinks, and talk to people. If you're having issues about diets or health, weight loss, do not go on immediate, just trying to lose your weight or doing anything that could impact negatively on your health. There is help available, and ask people to help you. Talk to parents, talk to your teachers, and also your family members. Eating a healthy diet, well-balanced foods, normal foods that are pretty healthy, eating from all the health food groups, fruits, vegetables, starches, milks, cheeses, calciums. All the food groups are extremely important for promoting a healthy diet and wealth and growth, and around during puberty and adolescent years, it's important that we get nutrients from all the healthy food groups. And just following a good diet is definitely helpful, but avoid any, once again, like any energy drinks or soda pops or any lots of high intake of fast foods, and talking to people and just turning to people that you can trust and confide in, and knowing that there's support and encouragement and strong groups out there that care for you, that's important. So,
thank you. Thank you, Nanda. This is a very interesting question. It says, I understand taking guidance from the primary care doctor, from the therapist, if my kid needs help with depression. Okay? Obviously, this parent is thinking my child goes to the doctor or the therapist, it's part of the medical record. Now, is that going to affect my kid's academics? is that kid, when my kid is going to apply to college, does that affect their application? Any comments?
The answer is no. Just flat out no. Medical records are completely protected and confidential, number one, and mental health records are doubly protected and confidential. There are only a very few professions that will ask about your mental health history, and then it is your right to say no. So, a college can never ask for it, legally, okay? That doesn't mean they won't ask, but they cannot legally ask for that record, nor can they get it without permission. So, basic answer, no.
And also you have the right to disclose
Whatever, how much you want to disclose, because as a patient or as a client, you have the right. So, you know, you are in power. If you don't want to disclose, that's your choice. If you want to disclose, that's also your choice. So don't feel like if you are taking any kind of treatment, that's hindering your future. I think it's not. It's opening the door.
So the fact is that university colleges cannot ask for that information. Now, having said that, once you've been admitted, you can then, your child at the age of 18, can waive their right to privacy so that the school can look for and identify what's going on, and the child will allow them to tell you what's going on. And that's very important, because after the age of 18, you can't control what is happening to them directly, meaning that Jason called us up when he was 18 going through a crisis, and he went to the college, their psychological services, and they said, well, you're too complicated, you have to seek privates. So we tried from Kansas City into Chicago, where Northwestern is, to try to set up an appointment, which we weren't able to do because he was already 18 years old. So what you need to do when your kids go to college is find out what the resources are and find out what the rules are, so that you're able to then protect them even though they're far away. So I think that's a very important idea.
I want to address
that as well from the perspective of the Children's Mercy social workers at each of your schools. One of our express roles is to be a liaison between families and the school, between parents and the school. And you can have a confidential conversation with that Children's Mercy social worker in which you talk about what can the school do to support your child, and then we'll also discuss what would you like shared with your child's teachers, and what we share is for the staff what they can do to support a child. We don't share what the issue is. We work with you to come up with ways to make sure that the community at school can be doing what they need to do to support your child. And we don't need to know what the diagnosis is. We just need your help so that we can support your child in that community at school.
You know,
I feel the mental health is as a physical. Now, if you have a physical illness, are you worried about your kids' school education or future? So why with the mental illness? It's the same as physical illness. So I think we need to ask that question to ourselves.
Thank you. I know it's 3:45 now. The program says 2 to 4. In the interest of the amount of questions, I really think this is an important topic where all of you have taken time to come together. If the panelists are okay, the audience are okay, I would like to continue with this discussion of the questions. I hope people can stay a little longer than 4 and continue this discussion. I see some shaking of heads. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. The next question is about, obviously you see a lot of immigrants in the group, and the question is, how important is the immigrant parent education? You know, obviously when we travel across the states and come here, how important is it to provide this education to the immigrant families? As well as the follow-up question is the incidence of suicide in children in immigrant family, especially South Asian immigrant families, is it any different from the others who are non-immigrants? It's a very interesting statistic, and I don't know the answer, but if you guys know the answer, that's fine. But the first part of the question is about immigrant parent education.
In my perspective, it's not about the education, it's about the attitude. If you have a right kind of attitude, no matter how educated you are, you can help your child. And the second thing is, I don't know the statistics about immigrant or majority parent, so I cannot comment on that.
I also cannot comment on whether or not the immigration by itself is a variable that increases or decreases likelihood of suicide. However, the stress that comes with immigration or immigration concerns, especially in our current culture, have elicited a lot more mental health concerns than have ever been known for kids that are children of immigrants. And so keeping that in mind, I think not being blind to the fact that that does create stress that maybe did not exist or was not present for a child prior to this time in our country, unfortunately. I think it's important to be aware of that.
I would like to add with this. I think when we are dealing with stress with the right kind of way, we are teaching our kids something. If we are stressed and we are feeling stuck, we are teaching something to our kids. So I think how we deal with our stress, we are telling them, it's okay. We are showing them resilience. We are showing them it's okay to have stress.
One thing, bottom line, we all have to understand is that depression is a treatable medical illness. So educating ourselves and our teenagers is very, very important. So we are able to recognize the signs and symptoms and seek treatment appropriately, as soon as possible. So, when kids are depressed, it's hard for them to, their outlook on life changes. With treatment, this can change. They might be able to achieve their goals with treatment. So, educate yourself. This is the first step.
Right, thank you. I would like...
One more thing on the immigration. I think we've talked about how genetics and stress plays a big role in triggering the symptoms of depression. So the stress that comes, same thing, the stress that comes with immigration is huge.
Right. Yeah. At this point, I would like to invite Ritu Daga onto the stage, and as she's come, I hope Ritu is in the audience. Okay, as she comes here, the preface is we do have, in our community, in South Asian community, we ask our kids to get involved in a lot of activities apart from school, whether it be sports, whether it be some kind of art form, whether it be classical dance or Bollywood dance or painting and so on and so forth. So, the thinking there, I hope, is for the parents to say, well, I would like my kid to learn other things that might help de-stress whatever is happening at school. Maybe a hobby, maybe another activity. And part of the challenge I hear is, as competitive as we want as parents our kids to be in school, get A's and all, and I think the competitiveness is also spills into whether it be an art form or a hobby that we would like for them to take. And I know Ritu spends a lot of time with our teens, has done it for years, and I see Hema here in the audience. Hema does the same thing too. So help us understand, Ritu, from your perspective, as you deal with these teens and their emotions, as you're trying to teach them, you got attention from a lot of parents here, and say a few words of your thoughts on this aspect.
Hello everybody, good afternoon. I've been teaching dance in Kansas City.
I've been teaching dance here in the Kansas City area for past 21 years, and one of the things that I have come across and what I notice in the change is very often when parents come to us trying to enroll their kids, their first question is, how long will it take for them to get on stage? And you know, I fail to understand that you haven't even put the kid in the heart. You're not trying to teach them a way of life. You want to get something out of them, an instant result, you know. So my advice is, you know, or not advice, I feel that when we are dealing with children or we are trying to teach them an art, a performing art, music, dance, we should inculcate the habit of seeing what hard work, years of perseverance can get you, not some instant result. You know, creativity is not a formula that you give and you have a fantastic result at the end of it. And it's okay if they are not the best, you know, it's their creativity. Every child is special. So I can never say when I take a child, and many times parents ask, do you think she's good enough? I cannot say that she's not good enough. She is very good in whatever. She may not be perfect, but you have to give the child the years to learn and let them feel that sense of achievement, you know, that what they are doing. And they do grow. They do grow so beautifully sometimes. I have had the opportunity to even teach some autistic children, and the kids and the parents themselves are surprised at what their kids can do at the end of 7 years, 8 years, 9 years. But we have to persevere and be patient with our children at that time.
Thank you.
And another important thing that I feel is not just teaching the child, it is very important taking your child to see other people perform, see their achievements. It's not that, it doesn't mean that they have to achieve it, but it's an inspiration for the child. You know, they are constantly working with themselves and they get inspired in their own ways. So that's a very, very important aspect about teaching them. Auntie wanted to say something.
Yes. If I'm allowed.
Sure.
Okay.
In my teaching, I do also notice how the kids behave with me and the others, and you can also, as a teacher, you can find out how well the kid is behaving. Also, what is the problem they go through in life. You can listen and you can share it with the parents. I have done it so many times. At the same time, you know, it was mentioning that they come and ask whether you want to put the child on the stage. And my philosophy is a little different than that, because, you know, they do have to go through 7, 8, 10 years of practice before they go on the stage. But my thought on that is, a child in this country, particularly, you know, everything is display based. Okay, that's the word I'm getting. So you give the child, they're very shy when they come to your classes. They don't even want to look at them. So you give them that encouragement that going on the stage, so I can do the dance. It gives them self-confidence. So that's my part on, you know, as a teacher, I encourage that. And I've seen so many people come up in that also. Thank you.
Thank you both. One of the question is about, again, we coming from a foreign country, we being minority in the community, as well as the kids trying to fit into the kids here. So the question is this a factor for kids going through depression, us being minority in this country? And how do you fight that?
Any stress can be a factor to trigger depression. So being a minority, going through abuse or bullying can certainly trigger that. You basically see in terms of how they are coping with the stress. That's when we focus on their coping management techniques, whether it be seeing a psychologist, a counselor, and working with them on stress management. And that's typically what I do based on the intensity of the symptoms. We talk briefly about some of the coping strategies that they can practice at home, and if that doesn't seem to make any progress or affect their symptoms, then that's when we refer them to a counselor or a psychologist who can work with them on a long-term basis. And I'm sure Lena will have more answers on that.
Yes, with that, I think if your child is coming with any kind of question, I can give you my personal example. My daughter, she's 7. One time she came to me and she said, why my skin is brown? And I said that, you know, you have the best skin because people go tan themselves to have the skin. Because we need to let our kids know whatever they have the best. At least, you know, when they're 6 or 7, so that we can build the self-confidence in them. So I feel like you need to find ways to show your kids it's not about other people, it's about what we have. So if we start focusing on those things, if we let our kids know that you are the best in my mind, I think that will give them self-confidence. And that those kind of things can bring that mindset that it's okay to be different. But how we accept our kids is the main thing.
But before talking about how they accept themselves, it's important to model, accept yourself, how you react to other people and how you view yourself as being a minority in the community. The kids are looking up to you, so that makes a big difference also.
Stress, no matter what, being a factor is huge. Dr. Arkin, one of the things that you mentioned and is incredibly important is the symptom of feeling helpless or hopeless, right? Those are two primary factors, and feeling worthless. So if you take all of 3 of those are really what I think that you're speaking to. And so creating hope in your children, creating a sense of agency, they can do something to change their current status, right? And it might not be perfect, but they can change. Something can change. That feeling that life can be different can be incredibly powerful. And mixing that with worth, right? I have worth as I am, and I have agency to change the way the world views me. That is huge.
That's great to answer. What is one thing the parents who are gathered here after this session, they have got all this wonderful information, what is one thing you would like for them to go do with their child after they go home? If there is one thing. This is a very tough question, guys.
Okay, I guess I'm...
I think the one thing is communication. The one thing is to say, you know what, I went to this thing today, and I just want to kind of sit down, and it's active listening. Being able to not only ask the question, but be prepared for the answer. So you guys have learned a little bit today about some of the things to look for. So now your charge is to go and practice it. So that's how I think that we can all benefit from today's experience.
One thing I would like to add with that.
You know, just go home and hug your child. That's it.
Open discussion about mental illness can help erode the stigma. So, I hope by this discussion, some of the parents here have understood the basic concepts, and hopefully that can help in lowering the stigma. So open discussion, and you do the same thing with the teens. It gives them a chance. It makes it easier for them to talk about their feelings, their emotions.
Suicide is a very unpleasant word in our community to discuss with our own children. How do you open up to discuss about suicide and consequences with the kids?
Unfortunately, we have a very good opening in our communities. We have suicide. And so I encourage parents to talk about it. Say to them, this has happened in our community, and I know that the thoughts have gone through everybody's mind at some time. I think something I would ask you to do when you go home is to change the way you ask. Instead of saying, you've never thought of this, right? Which the only answer is, of course not, right? Instead, change it to, when have you thought about that? Or, I've had thoughts like this when I was younger. Have you had thoughts recently? Right? Like, change the dialogue to be something of expecting it to be yes, not expecting it to be no.
There's a
There's a change in the way the media is now looking at this. I've been fortunate enough to be able to talk on the radio and on television a little bit about these issues. And I've talked to some of the reporters, and now they are doing their research and they are opening up to that. They all have these policies. They're changing because they understand what is happening. We haven't truly talked about the numbers here in this community, but it is staggering what has happened here. And I believe that's why some of you are here today, is because you know of somebody that has gone through this experience, if not you directly. So I think that the wording is exceedingly important, as we've talked about, but the ability to get talking about the concept and to bring that up in such a way that's non-threatening. But again, we talk about, when you talk about suicide, you bring that thought into somebody's mind. No, they've already thought about it. And you are validating what they're thinking by discussing it, and by that, you're decreasing the stigma. And then, if the answer was no, great, fantastic. But if the answer is yes, arm yourself with the resources that are available in this community so that you can work through it.
Okay.
And with that, can I add something? I feel like when you're talking about suicide, just don't make it a big deal. It's the same topic as we discuss other things, right? So if I am not making a big deal, I'm just generalizing things, I think that is creating the normality in our kids too. If I am thinking, oh my God, suicide, you know what I'm telling my kids? It's not a topic to discuss. But if it's, you say, this is common these days, let's talk about it. Because those kind of things will help them to see it's not a big deal. They can talk, and they can talk to their parents and talk about it.
So, as being a physician, I'm a hospitalist, takes care of the adults over 18. I don't see the kids. Being a physician, I want to give my perspective, and especially the word. What kind of wordings we'll be using when we are talking to our kids? Can we talk? Are you feeling about suicide? Have you thought about ending your life? I don't feel comfortable, even being a physician, I would not be feeling comfortable asking these kind of questions. So I think having the division screening questionnaire that you probably have in your clinic, which is perfect, because that's a written questionnaire and you answer. So as a physician, you can pick up like any red flags. Yes. But as a parent, how we should be approaching. I'm telling you, I'm a physician, we all read the psychiatry in our medical training. Every diagnosis we read, we feel like, do we have that? And then we just laugh about it, we talk about it, hey, this is how it is feeling. So what sometimes I feel, when we're talking to our kid, we have to be very careful about the words that we're using when we're trying to diagnose the depression or anxiety. Because if I cannot be very direct about those kinds of wording, so I would really appreciate helping with those kinds of wording that we should be using when we communicate with our kids. I'm not feeling comfortable talking to them about using these suicide words. Have you thought about ending your life? All these questionnaires that we have, do we have to talk to them everyday basis or only when we see the red flags? If we don't see the signs, what we want to teach them life? We want to teach them happiness. Do we still have to talk to them even if we are not seeing the signs? That's my question.
To answer, I'm hearing two different questions, so tell me if I'm wrong. The first one being, what kind of words should we be using? And in a way that creates the idea that life is worth it and that we're not focusing only on the negative. That's one of the questions I'm hearing you ask. And then the second one is more information on how to pick up on red flags and also what physicians might be getting and how they might address it. Is that
so do we have to talk to our kids even we are seeing things in the family and not in the kid? Do we still have to discuss with the kid
even they're happy or we feel like, it's nothing going on, does this put something in their mind? Sometimes I feel like that.
I think that's very fair. So, the first part of it, asking does not put the idea of trying it into a child's mind. First, the research says that across the board, that just by asking, you do not increase a child's risk of suicide. So that's number one. But there are lots of ways to ask, and you will know your child best. Some of the things that I often encourage parents to start with is to start with the easy questions, right? Start with things that are pretty normal. How has your day been? How have the week been? How are your friends doing, right? That can give you a lot of information, right? I've noticed that you're hanging out more by yourself rather than with other kids. Those are kind of easy ones, right? Then you can ask things about, what do you like about yourself, right? If your child has trouble coming up with that answer, that gives you information without ever asking them, do you feel like you're worthless, right? You can ask about how much do you get excited about going to college, or how much do you get excited about being an adult? What are you most excited about? And if they can't come up with any excitement, that tells you a lot about hope, right? You can ask these questions in ways that feel comfortable to you. Starting that conversation is the hardest part. Once you've started that conversation, then you can get into the hard questions. And as a parent, asking that hard question, once you've gotten a little bit more information that goes, maybe there is something I should be paying attention to, saying to them, have you ever considered not being alive anymore? Right? That's a very important question, and that's hard, right? That's a hard question as a parent to ask. And at the same time, if your child goes, absolutely not, which teenagers are very good at telling us when we're wrong. Let's be clear, if you ask the wrong question, they will tell you, right? But if you ask the right question, and they pause, that is a lot of information in that very silent moment, right? At least that's my opinion.
Great, thank you. What do parents do to see their kid, very interesting question, which is, if the parents see their kids bullying other kids, okay? So you're a parent, your kid is, might be bullying some other kid. How do you, number one, know if your child is actually a bullier? If so, what do you do about it? Any one of you guys. No takers?
So your question is how?
So I'm a parent and I want to know if my child is the bullier. Are there any things that I need to look for as warning signs that my child is the aggressor rather than anybody on the panel?
There is a good likelihood that if they are bullying at school, you will see some of those aggression even at home. There will be some signs, so watch out for that. And when you do see those behaviors, a discussion again with them, like you would talk to them about whether they're drinking. That's the same discussion you might want to sit with them and talk to them.
And then the second thing is, I think if you are getting any kind of clues from the schools, if teachers are calling you, that's another way we can know if our kid is getting into those kind of situations. So then you might say that I'm not saying anything, if this is I'm hearing, let's see your perspective, because they might have reasoning why they're doing those kind of things. So listening to your kid, not just jumping and not assuming things, not accusing them, I think give them more opportunity to talk. Probably they have certain rationality in their mind why they're doing it. Those kind of things I think we need to pay attention to, because every behavior has a reasoning why they're doing it. So I feel like if we need to find reasoning rather than be stuck in a problem.
Great. Right? Thank you. The next question. Sometimes the child says to the parents of Indian origin, the parents don't believe in anxiety and depression. Is this a truth or is it a myth? So the child is saying that people of Indian origin they can't get depressed. They can't get anxiety.
The thing is, I feel like we need to differentiate between depression and clinical depression. Because we use depression for so many things. I'm depressed today. It's a very common thing in our culture that, you feel sad, you're depressed. Right? But there is difference between clinical depression, diagnosed depression, and depression. So I think if as a parent we are aware of those things, then we can talk about it. If we are feeling okay, and moreover I feel like there's a very cultural difference because we all came from India. And if I imagine growing up, we never had these kind of issues, right? We never had dysfunctional families. I mean, we never had openly dysfunctional families, right? We never had step-parents. How many times when we were growing up thought about having step-parents? One time my daughter, she was 5, she came home, she said, why didn't I have step-parent or step-mom? I said, go ask your dad. So, those kind of, you can see our kids from the beginning, they are going through that kind of stress. Why don't I belong to the majority group? Because, these small things are creating that kind of questioning in their brain that I'm different. If I don't have a step-parent, I'm different. If I don't have a step-brother or sister, I'm different. But when we were growing up, we never had those kind of issues. So I feel like we had only one thing we had in mind, playing outside with friends. Right? We are coming home to the same family, never had those kind of things. If we were beaten, everybody was beaten, right? So it was normal, no abuse. I mean, we never thought about being abused, but we had those beatings, right? So I think we need to think about those things, right? Then we need to tell our kids that depression and clinical depression are two different things. So that we also make them aware that, things are different here. And if we are understanding them, I think that's the best way we can explain to them that yes, our culture are different, but I'm here to learn your culture too. Because I feel like they are kind of sandwiched, they are struggling between two cultures. They go to school, they have a different culture. They come home, they have a different culture. So I feel like if at home they are feeling they've been hurt, they can relax, they can do things, that's the best way. Because if you don't feel relaxed at home, where would you feel relaxed?
This next question is to Gail. I know Joseph wants to go.
Just about this one, because I think it's very important. Parents of Indian origin, that they don't have any kind of mental health diagnosis is basically a myth. It's not at all, it's far away from being a fact. Having a parent, there have been studies done to look at the incidence of any mental health diagnosis worldwide, and it's been the same. Whether it's India, America, Africa, Europe, it's all the same.
Great, thank you. Gail, question for you. Are high-achieving kids at high risk of depression, suicide? Why do we need to avoid pressurizing them and encouraging them to kind of hold off for these high-achieving kids?
So, are high-achieving kids at greater risk or just at risk?
At greater risk.
Because the answer is all kids are at risk. But yes, any sort of, and this comes back to that same question, it's a question of what creates stress in our bodies and in our minds, and chemically what creates stress and changes the way that our brains work, right? And so absolutely, we should expect a lot from our kids. Of course, we should expect a lot from our kids. That's how we support them and show them that what they do is important to us, right? But if we set an expectation for our children that is not feasible or is constant, right? So if you have a constant sense of you can't be the best, you can't quite ever reach your goal, then that creates a sense of constant failure, right? So what you see a lot in kids that are perfectionistic is that there is no perfect that is done, right? That things are never done because they're never perfect. And in those kids, the risk is higher, right? If you don't have a sense of completion and satisfaction with completion, the risk is higher. But that's very hard to kind of, I think as a parent, to know what is too far and what is not far enough. I think that is a universal difficulty in parenting. And so you should look to your kids. What is important to them and what are they motivated to do first? And then I know the second question is, well, my kids don't want to do anything right now. So that's the second part, right? So then you ask, okay, how do I keep things interesting? As a parent, how do I give them opportunities to do things, but how do I also give them opportunities to say no? How do I let them show me that they're overwhelmed with my perfectionism and wanting them to succeed, right? And make it okay for them to say, I don't want to do that. Not right now. Now, if they say no to everything, then we have a second question, right? But for most kids, if you give them the opportunity to choose what's important to them and say no to the things that aren't, most kids will choose some things to fill some of
Interesting. This parent actually summarized in a nice way the discussion for this afternoon. I'm just going to read out what this parent wrote out, and I think this emphasizes that you guys are getting this information, putting it together, and then saying, you know, this is what I would like for the audience to know. Do talk to your friends. That's their suggestion. Do talk to your friends. Do not hide the things from friends. It is just like other sickness. Small group, close friends always help in first place. Try to talk to kids other than just the studies. Talk about their hobbies, their interests. And then have more family events other than just the cyber-like game parties. So these are the quick notes that this parent has written down. One thing that came out is genetic testing. So this parent is actually asking more about, are there any tests out there, number one, that can help diagnose depression? That's number one. Number two, are there any other genetic tests that would help, at least if not diagnose, in treatment of depression with medication? So any one of the panelists. Dr. Hawkins.
Well, that's actually
something that I've been looking at quite a bit recently, and joining with a number of people here in the Kansas City area that are actively involved in doing that type of research. So there are certain genes that are associated with suicidality. So you have depression, anxiety, and mental illnesses, and you want to know what's going on with that. So there are some programs at the University of Missouri Kansas City that's working with that. In addition, there are some imaging studies that look at what person is going to perhaps respond to a certain treatment rather than another. So I think there's very exciting information and data going on. So I think one of the keys to all of this is identification of those types of symptoms that we've been talking about, and then getting into those types of programs to have the testing done to see, so that we're not quote-unquote guessing what will be first. We'll have better educated information about what to use.
Right.
But there is no specific diagnostic test that we can use to diagnose depression. Depression for now is more of a clinical diagnosis. So don't jump in, go ask your doctor for CAT scan, imaging, genetic testing. I mean, it's in the process, there's research, there are a lot more studies that are being done that are looking into it. There are some genetic testing that we are doing to look at how they respond to medications. But the first step is to go see a doctor.
Great. At this time, I would like to call upon the stage Ms. Anil Mishra. Anju Mishra, please come onto the stage. She answers the phone line for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and she wants to say a couple of minutes, a few things about that.
Thank you. My name is Anju. I do not live in Kansas City. I live in Lawrence. I've lived in Lawrence for 30 years. A friend invited me here. I did not know about this, let me tell you, but I wanted to come and talk to all of you. Thank you to the panelists. They are talking about everything that I am trained on. By profession, I talk about money management. So nobody knows this side of me. So if you talk to anybody who knows me, they don't know about this part of me. Even though I talk about it, I talk very subtly. So I brought these brochures for you. I am a volunteer counselor for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, okay? And I think all of you, I know that Rina gave that information. The school counselor, Gail, everybody has been talking about it. Look, this hotline, first of all, there's somebody like me, dark hair, dark skin, counseling anybody and everybody all across the nation. This headquarters counseling center is the number 3rd oldest in the nation. It started in 1967, I think, okay, at KU. This, we talk to people coast to coast. But if there is anybody calling from Kansas, all 105 counties, they ring in Lawrence, Kansas, in this small room where we all counselors sit, okay? It is available to any kids, any adults. So a 6-year-old calls us, and a 95-year-old calls us, okay? A 10-year-old being abused by a coach. By the way, all these things don't see color of your skin. These things happen to anybody. These depressions and stress we talk about. There could be, a 21-year-old at school talking about, my parents don't know what I'm talking, And when they tell you that, no, you don't know about this line, but this is not only for the people who are going through stress, but parents. If there are people calling that my kids are having this, people calling that I'm having this problem with kids, there are now an increasing number of parents calling us, what do I do? Okay? And Gail, thank you. When Gail is talking about asking those questions that the doctors are asking, they're trying to diagnose. But, when I have to share with you that the kind of calls we get, there are calls where, and I can tell when you talk about, what kind of ethnic background these kids are from, because I'm an Indian mama myself, right? So I know what the expectations are, so I can tell. But I will tell you, the kids are 18 or younger. We do talk to them about, what to do, and to try to prevent them. There are kids who call and say, I'm cutting my hand right now, I'm sitting with a knife. So our first thing when we go through it is to get them to put the knife away, get somebody safe to talk to. Please do not feel bad if the child doesn't want to talk to you. It is okay for the child to talk to somebody else. Don't suggest, go to somebody's mama, because that mama probably will sound just like you, so they don't want to talk to them. They totally refuse. So we talk to them about going to a safe person, trying to get things away from harm. There are times when children are saying, parents are not here, I'm going to sit in the car, turn this, my car on, and die of, carbon monoxide poisoning, okay? So there are those kind of crisis hotline, but we also talk to parents about what to do if their child is depressed. Sometimes also, if any one of these people call you, please take that call with an open mind. Don't say that, not be in denial, definitely all of us understand, but take it as an open mind. Don't feel embarrassed, ashamed, or scared about it, because all of these people are very well trained. And anybody, I believe this, please do take it. Hopefully none of you would ever need it, but even if you're trying to help anybody, this is just to call and talk to people.
And it's 24
It is 24 hours. So I am old now, I cannot answer those, 12 to 8 at midnight. I don't want to work at that time, but it is 24 hours. So, and they will tell you exactly what to do in that hour, that time. They will give you skills, to talk. I'm also that parent who will say, okay, shut up, don't talk to me about that, right? But they'll tell you, okay, this is the question you can ask, like specific sentence, and you'll get that kind of help. Okay, so please do use this place, just to talk or even to vent. We get those kind of calls too. My kid has been really bad, can I vent? Yes, you can. You're always listening here. You'll always find somebody trained there to help you, okay? Thank you, and thank you for letting me speak. Thank you, Wandu, for letting me know.
Thank you so much. I know that we are getting kind of tight on time, and we got kind of maybe 10 more minutes, and I've got 20 questions. So with that in mind, few final comments. I know that we may not be able to get to all the questions, and anybody who has not read the question out, if you've written the question, feel free to go talk to the panelists. I request you to stay back a little longer and then be able to talk about any of these additional questions. I do want to ask each one of you, take a couple minutes and summarize to the audience a quick, maybe 3 points as they go home today. 3 things that you want them to kind of keep in the back of their mind as they interact with the child and go through this process. So I'll start with you, Gail, and then we'll come from Dave here.
So first, I was just going to add something to Andrew. Thank you so much for coming. That crisis line is so important to so many teens. And somebody asked earlier, a couple of people have asked us, like, how do I even start this conversation? And these are great resources for starting that conversation. You put it on your refrigerator, you put it on your counter, and you just leave it. And then they go, what is that? And you go, oh, I went to this talk the other day, and I just thought I'd put it on my refrigerator. If you have a friend that might need that number, here it is. Maybe you should put it in your phone. We all give our kids cell phones earlier now, right? They all have them. We all got them. Ask them to put the number in their phone for a friend. There's also a text line, 741-7401, and a lot of our kids are texting rather than calling. Calling is like, I'm not going to talk to anybody. So 741-741 is really easy. It's up the left side of the phone. And putting that in a place that your child sees on a regular basis can be a lifeline for them or a friend of theirs. And so that's going to be my thing. I'm going to encourage you to make these accessible to your kids, and don't be afraid that they might reach out to them before they reach out to you.
Great. Karen?
We just want you to know at Blue Valley that we respect your culture, we respect your children, and we respect you as parents. One of the things that I've been thinking about as we're talking is that often what I hear from children when I'm working with them is how much they love their parents and how much they don't want to let their parents down. And that sometimes when our children don't tell us things, it's because they desperately don't want to disappoint us. And so the more that you can begin to use words like depression and anxiety and talk about these things in a way that lets them know it's safe, the more likely your child is to be able to come and talk to you about that. And also please know that there are staff at school who want to support and encourage your children and follow your lead in how we can help them to be successful.
So the message from me as a parent, me as a neurologist, is that to be able to communicate, and when you do communicate, is to do it in a non-threatening way, and when you and your children have the time, so that when you do open up the door, that you are ready for the answer. First of all, prepare yourself. You guys have all had this information now. This is fantastic information. What to look for, what are the big red flags, and before you ask the questions, know what your resources are so that you can develop then a crisis plan for that eventuality potential, that you do hear that your kid is struggling, and that it's important that you're able to digest that information and to give back the empathy that's required to say that it's safe for you not only to have said this now, but to come back and to tell what the progress is and how you're doing it, and help them in developing that crisis plan. The people that they could talk to at 3 in the morning for when they get into that darkness, that they can be nudged one way or the other to get out of it. Because that's where people get into trouble. The people that die by suicide make the decision to do so within 24 hours, really. 75% of them within 24 hours, 30% within 5 minutes of that decision. Okay, so it's a irrational situation in a relatively rational world. And that's what we have to do, is have to have that preparation, so that if you're going anywhere near that, to be able to get on your phone and call A, A's not there, B, D's not C, and keep going.
So my take is that the first thing is active listening, and the second thing is acceptance. No matter where your kid is, accept the way they are rather than putting things on them. And the third thing is showing them that they matter. Because those are the things our kids need to know, that they do matter. Sometimes, in stress, we say things, but kids take them differently. It's all about the perception. Even though you don't mean it, but how they take it, it's all different ballgame. So I feel like having their language, letting them know they matter in their language, is very important.
Take-home points from a medical standpoint is, like diabetes, like hypertension, like asthma, depression is a medical diagnosis. It's very prevalent, very common, and it can be life-threatening. Treatment helps.
Thank you so much for the panelists. Let's give them a big round of applause. The amount of response that we got for this event, one of the thoughts by the core people who have been involved in this process is to see if there is any desire from the parents to do two things. Number one, does it make sense to have a program like this for children?
Yes, once in a month.
So that's one thought that the group had, but we didn't want to do anything for the children until we at least got some feedback from not just 10 of us or 15 of us, but a large number of you saying, yes, I think this is something we would need. Hold on a second, please. And the second is, does it make sense to have, I probably already to do some sessions like this on an ongoing basis, rather than just one-time thing. So if the overwhelming answer is yes, I would certainly want, there has been an interest from the AAPI, American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, Greater Kansas City. Padmija is the president for that organization. She has expressed some desire from AAPI Greater Kansas City to take on that responsibility to have some kind of an ongoing discussion around this topic. So I'll ask Padmija to come and share her thoughts on this for a couple minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Michelle, for taking this initiative and for giving me this opportunity to talk to you all about what to do next. I am really, really happy to see this level of audience, this much of interest in our community, especially in our Indian community. I'm really, really so happy. We just started talking about in our medical group, how about doing this with recent news. And it flourished into this good conference with all of your participation and panel's expressions. It actually widened my knowledge base regarding depression in trauma interest. Just two more points I just want to mention. Because of these recent tragic events, we physicians felt very obligated to find solutions to this issue. As you can see, that we treat this as any other health crisis. So that's what made us do this. And we are planning on doing these interactive sessions. The first one is with the help of IAKC. We are going to do it on June 23rd. This is actually a part of our health fair we have been doing since last year. We had a child psychiatrist, Dr. Josna Adma and Ms. Rina Sharma. We had them, but we did not get that much response from the community at that time. So now, with this much audience, I'm expecting there will be a lot more people coming in to know about this. So we certainly are planning on doing this June 23rd as the first continuation of this. And also, we thought of doing one more before the school's opening in August. About anxiety, with all the kids and families going through the anxiety. So there will be more, I'm sure. I'm going to take help Dr. Atma to help me with the coordination of all these events.